Okay, this is a very long session. Why don't we all get up, stretch a little bit? So just like, I think you can flip your desk up. Yeah, don't be shy. I'm gonna stretch with you. It's a very long session. We gotta like get our brains moving, get our bodies moving. Yeah. Stretch any way you want, but if you want to follow me, you can kind of, cross your arm. Be careful of your neighbor. Cross your other arm the other direction. Yeah. Careful. Maybe do a little bit with your neck, side to side. Maybe hands behind your back, stretch it out, stretch your shoulders. I would suggest, the quad stretch, but that seems hard for balance, so I won't suggest that. All right. Okay, hopefully everybody feels ready. You sit back down now. Helps me a little bit to stretch out. Okay, cool. So I have been to a lot of conferences, so I'm going to be talking about how to make the most out of conferences. I gave a little bit of an intro already on the panel. I've been for very many years of my PhD, so I've now redacted how many years it's been. But I was like you, was attending PLMW way back in 2017. And so I've been here for a long time and attended many conferences, as I've already mentioned. Right, so I probably should have actually given this caveat during the panel. So advice in general doesn't work for everyone. My supervisor's favorite saying is basically like, ignore all advice given to you, which is kind of strange because that means you would ignore that advice. Don't think about it too hard. Right, so I'm going to be giving a lot of advice in this talk. You can feel free to ignore all of it or take some of it or just pick and choose or augment it to your purposes. So I do want to give that a little bit of that caveat. But if you're like me, I'm kind of like an advice junkie. I love reading other people's advice. I feel like it's, it's a way to like fix my life. So if you want even more advice, there have been other great renditions of this talk by other people, Joe and Sam at PLMW 25 and ICFP 24. They're fantastic renditions of this as well. Okay, so I want to talk about conferences, right? So conferences you might think of as kind of three main components. There's a lot of research talks, right? A full schedule of them, right? And things associated with the conferences like workshops and receptions and things like this. And there's a lot of strangers. But what I'm going to encourage you from this talk is to actually flip this perspective, right? So focus on the people, right, that are at the conference. There are a lot of friends, potential collaborators, potential supervisors. And to make the schedule your own, right? Don't focus on how full the schedule you can make it, but how you can kind of sustain it over a long period of time. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to sort of attend and absorb research talks. And my emphasis on people is ultimately because conferences are a way to engage with a particular community. So here it's going to be ICFP and UPSLA, two big communities, one much bigger than the other. And to effectively engage with the community, you really need to feel a part of a community, right? So that's why I really, really emphasize the connections you make at conferences. All right, so we'll start with our lots of strangers. You might be wondering, why does it even matter? Why do I have to put such an emphasis on people? If you want to think short term, it'll make your conference experience a lot more enjoyable. You'll have people to hang out with during the breaks, go to dinner with, lunch, etc. But overall, at sort of a high level, you'll get a lot more long-term benefits from engaging with people. So one of them is building up a support system, as I mentioned, and as many of the panelists mentioned, right? This aspect of going through the PhD together, making that community early on was something emphasized. And then again, as I'm sort of nearing the end of my PhD, I'm thinking about opportunities for the future, right? And so you can sort of build those potential opportunities for your PhD or afterwards, kind of early on. And then again, we talked about collaborations. Best way to make collaborations is to meet people. So of course, the reason to build a support system is, of course, nobody gets through life alone. Again, in graduate school, I found it so helpful that I have so many friends going through it with me, not only at my own institution, but across institutions, right? I've kept up with so many people from conferences. Even that very first PLMW, I still have friends from then. It's such interesting the way that that loads in, but like this is, me at the last conference I attended, ICFP in 2023. And I decided to just start taking pictures of people because it's a great reminder of all the people I've met and it really just emphasizes like how much the people matter at a conference. More opportunities. So at a conference, when you talk to people, a lot of people are, associated with universities and our academics, but there are a lot of people doing other things, right? So you can learn about completely new potential careers. We had the job panel for that as well. And there's also, if you are curious about people beyond what they do for work, there's also potential to discover all kinds of new hobbies. So when I was an undergrad, I had no idea what professors did, right? I still to this day remember talking to my undergrad advisor and being like, oh, there's conferences in PL. What do you do there? That sounds like fun. Do you all just, talk about these interpreters that I've been learning about? So yeah, even as an undergrad, I didn't really understand what a professor's career is like. And so research conference is a great way to learn that firsthand. There's also, maybe as a hobby, a strange obsession with t-shirts at conferences. It turns out Jane Street is not a t-shirt company, although they seem to be. So this is another thing, you can collect them all from our conferences. And then finally, as we mentioned from the panel, and I'll just emphasize again, a great way to start potential collaborations is by, attending conferences, giving talks about works in progress. That's how I was able to start one. We even started working while at the conference together, right? And then, of course, this also has the added benefit of building up your support network. So for me in particular, I met my supervisor at ICFP, as I mentioned, when he was still a graduate student, but had been hired to start a tenure track position. Yeah, so how do you meet people? Good way to start is to start with your peers. It'd be great if we were to gather up a bunch of people who are just starting out, maybe running some sort of workshop to get them all together. That would be great. That would be really good. Oh yeah, that's what we're all here for. We're here at PLMW to meet each other, to start building up our support network. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk to each other. You've had the icebreaker in the morning, but let's do it again just to reinforce that. I'll give you a starter question, but you can honestly just talk about whatever you like. So like, what's your coffee order? Or if you don't drink coffee, what kind of drinks do you like to order? So I'll give you a few minutes for that. Okay, let's come back. Usually it's much easier to get people back. So this is great. Very active, big group here. That's awesome. It seems like you all are really getting to know each other. That's great. So one thing I will note is that, a great way to expand beyond PLMW is the people who have organized PLMW. So a bunch of us, just pictures here. I kind of had to layer them up. But a bunch of us here participate in PLMW because we care about building our community and mentorship, right? And so I'm just gonna, advertise that, hey, all these people you've seen today are open and willing to talk to you. And that's how you can sort of start expanding beyond PLMW, just starting from PLMW and going outwards. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a challenge. I did forget my gold star sticker sheet, but I have it. It's just in my hotel right now. But if you introduce two people that maybe you've met at PLMW and then meet somebody at a coffee break, if you then introduce those people, I'll give you a gold star sticker for that. I might run out quickly. We'll see. Okay, so I'm gonna try and go a little bit faster, but you'll see during the coffee breaks, sort of conversation circles start to form. And so I'll give you a little bit of advice about that. So if you're, conversing with people, especially from PLMW, try to always make room for other people to join, and be confident joining other groups, right? Always try, you might be mid-conversation, but always try to kind of give them a chance to introduce themselves, maybe let somebody finish a thought, but then you can say, hey, just joined, you mind introducing yourself, or start with yourself, right? Always introduce yourself to new people. And so during those conversation talks, circles, you might have some small talk. So, you can ask questions like, what's your research? What did you think of some talk or keynote? All these boring small talk. What I suggest to you instead is to ask questions like this. So what's a photo in your phone with a chaotic backstory? If you were a fish, how would you grow back your legs? What's an animal you wish you could have as a pet? Ignoring all the sort of ethical concerns with that. Assuming it is okay to have pets in any kind of pet. And what's something you wish you could have touched on in your talk? Okay, that's actually a very good question. And you will get a lot of people from talks, especially from the OOPSLA talks, because they're only 12 minutes long or something. Yeah, you'll start a good conversation with that question. And finally, I will tell you that strangers are a lot like spiders. They're more scared of you than you are of them. It's hard to get through. People are very happy if you come to them, excited to talk to them, starting a conversation. Trust me of that. And of course, always keep in contact. I will give you my contact information at the end. It's a good way to continue keeping up with your support network even beyond this particular week. Oh, and finally, okay, I guess I have a lot of advice here. Make a website. People need to be able to contact you. Something as simple as a photo of yourself, if you feel comfortable with that. This is me. This is where I'm at. Some stuff I do. Here's my email. It's becoming harder and harder to find people's emails, I find. Because a little bit of a embarrassing backstory, I did not have a personal website when I attended the conference where I met my supervisor. And he found some really old WordPress site that I had to do for my first year of undergrad. and that's how he found my email, and that was extremely embarrassing. So have your own curated website be the first thing that comes up with your name. Okay, so I kind of mentioned the three components of a conference, which was people, time, and research talks. So let's talk about scheduling your time. What was this trying to say? It was kind of like don't open and don't attend. Oh, okay. Don't attend every talk. So you might have attended every talk in PLMW, and that's a good way to start off. But it turns out that the rest of the conference is going to be organized into sessions. Sessions consist of a lot of related talks, and you should really be using that to your advantage, right? So if there are sessions that you don't find as compelling, this is a good opportunity to get some rest and to skip that part of the conference. Might be wondering, well, which sessions do I want to actually attend instead of skipping, right? They often, might have titles that you're unfamiliar with in terms. And some ways you might choose what sessions to attend is ask some of your new friends here, which sessions are they going to? Ask people at coffee breaks, choose randomly, you might learn something new, or you could do a little bit of research, read some abstracts of the talks. It's convenient, you can just click on the talk and see the abstract. Yeah, and so we have a huge conference happening now. There's going to be multiple sessions running in parallel. And so you can see one talk in one session and then be like, oh, well, there's this other session and there's a bunch more talks in there that I might be interested in. And it's totally fine to switch between sessions. Just be careful, opening the door to the hallway, people are talking, just try and do it like quickly. But it's totally fine to switch between sessions. So my advice to you is the keynotes are often very, very good. I recommend and I try to attend all the keynotes in a conference because they're done by experts. They're over a long range of research and you learn a lot from them. So an example schedule that you might have is you might attend, the morning keynote. There's a coffee break for some much needed coffee. You might attend the morning session, have lunch, maybe leave lunch a little bit early to take some take a nap, to rest, to do some tourism because we're in Singapore and it's lots of cool things to do. Might attend instead the second afternoon session and then attend maybe a reception dinner or call it an early night, right? So rest is super important during a conference. You're going to be here for an entire week. We're all still adjusting, not necessarily all of us, but many of us are adjusting to the new time zone. And additionally, your brain is working super hard. You're socializing with new people. All that. So don't end up like this, 3 coffees, no lunch, drinking a bunch of caffeine, not affecting your exhaustion, or like my supervisor sleeping in the middle of the talk. Right, so this is all in favor of avoiding burnout. A lighter daily schedule means you attend more of the days. So for me personally, I like attending all the days of the conference. I like seeing people every day. But of course, I do often skip sessions to get desserts or, in one case, seeing my friends' cats. All right, so that's a little bit about attending your time. Let's wrap up with talking about attending research talks. So I will start by saying research talks are very difficult to understand, especially when they will be at UPSLA for 12 minutes, talking about a 25-page paper. It's going to be hard to understand. And so a little bit about why research talks are hard to understand. Usually, research talks and papers are about a very highly specific area, as we kind of mentioned during the panel. They're most often just a teaser for the paper. They're not going to include all the exposition that they also included in the paper. They're going to assume a lot of background knowledge that you might not have. And primarily, they're kind of aimed at experts, right? To start a conversation like, hey, this is a new thing I did. Maybe you will find it helpful. Let's start a potential collaboration, things like this. So they're not at all like a lecture. There's no explanation for things. There will be a bunch of symbols flashing very quickly. And it's totally okay for it to be sitting in a talk, having things totally go over your head, right? I kind of just think of it as not really attending and understanding, comprehending research talks. Is more like marinating, maybe. You're just like letting your brain see a bunch of terms you don't know. Maybe you're spacing out a little bit because you've kind of lost it. You're sitting in confusion, you're trying to catch up. All these things are very true. And of course, I do a very highly specific thing. When I start learning about somebody else's highly specific thing, I'm sitting there very confused. And so kind of recognizing this about yourself, that you're going to be sitting there and being confused, is really key to actually getting something out of a talk, right? So really become comfortable with sitting in the unknown. So what one could get out of a research talk is sort of, the structure of research talks, the motivation for certain research, high-level components of a solution. These are all fantastic things to get out of a talk. Most likely, you will get the fact that research talks are confusing. Lots of terms to Google later, right? Lots of funny symbols. I mean, what is this? What is this DFLAP rule? This is from one of our panelists, Anton. First order laziness, which will happen tomorrow at 2:30. And it's during the distinguished papers session. So there's no other session running in parallel. You should definitely go check that out. So again, I'm going to recommend that you just relax your brain. You let yourself marinate. We're all at different stages, and we're all here to help. If you found something confusing, that's a great way to start a conversation with one of the speakers. And yes, I still struggle with this. It's really just about drowning your brain in as much information as you can. Okay, so my final advice, for real, is to journal every day. Lots of things are happening. You might think, I'll remember to do this later. Most likely you will not, myself included. So I try to journal every day, people I've met, things I've learned, talks I've attended, just like even briefly during the coffee breaks I've even started now. So to recap, conference is a lot of people, a lot of potential friends, potential collaborations, potential advisors, and you want to maintain your own personal schedule so that you can last the entire week here. And recognizing that research talks are really difficult to understand. You won't understand everything, but you will certainly get something from attending them. I'll just skip this. And I will say that a bunch of us from our research group are giving talks, including myself. So I encourage you all to check that out. And thank you very much. Oh, I guess I should say I can take any questions if you all have them. Yeah. Any tips on how to join conversation circles? I mean, it can be very nerve-wracking. So like one thing is if you see somebody that that's a good way. And then, introduce yourself or just have your friend introduce you, things like that. But yeah, it is very nerve-wracking, and having somebody in the group helps a lot. But otherwise, we're all here to talk and hang out with each other. So it really generally is people are very welcoming when you come and join them. It feels very scary though. I acknowledge that. Yeah. That is fair, yes. It's that time of day.
Remote friends, if I'm ignoring you, I don't hate you. I promise. It's very difficult.
Yeah, how to keep in touch with remote friends. Well, back in the day, I used to use Twitter. That is gone kaput. So now I'm on Mastodon. Oh, speaking of, actually, I forgot to put my email. Here we go. That's my email on my website. I said I would give you my contact information. Email is another way. Discord seems to be cool with all the kids. You could start a Discord, a PLMW Discord. There is the conference one, but if you want something more private, that could be a good way to do it. But yeah, social media is one way, unfortunately, that I do it. But otherwise, email is good too. Or I mean, Discords, yeah, like group chats, things like this is a good way. Yeah.
Do you have any advice on what to do if you say something really intellectually embarrassing?
Oh. Advice on intellectually embarrassing. I'll tell you a story about something embarrassing that I did, which is I was talking to somebody. They were a student at a student research competition. They had a great poster. It was very relevant to my work. We're chatting it up. I say, hey, have you heard of this paper? And they were like, yeah, that's my paper. So I did not recognize their name from that paper. So my advice is, you know, it happens to all of us. Acknowledging, you know, you might be wrong about something, and it's totally okay to be wrong about things. I still am trying to learn this myself. That was incredibly mortifying experience. But we've become very close after that. So anything else? Yeah. Yeah, I went to UBC for my master's and now I'm there for my PhD.
Okay, and
My undergrad was at Indiana University. Yeah.
I noticed that there's a lot of like abbreviation sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any in particular that you might be relevant?
There's a lot of abbreviations in the sessions. Is there anything that's more relevant to early stage people? I don't know. We can talk offline about particular abbreviations, but you can always try like looking at particular abstracts and try and see if they actually expand what that acronym means, or in the intro of the paper. Hopefully they do, because that's the good way to do it. But yeah, I don't know if I have any right off the top of my head, but we could go through the conference sessions and talk about it. Onward is good for that. Yeah. Onward is kind of this more talking about sort of great future. I think there was a question about like where the future of PL is going. Onward is a good workshop for that. Yeah. I don't know when I should stop. Just let me know. Oh, all right, last question.
When you say that a lot of folks end up flying with that, when this happens, I get the sense that I'm kind of wasting my time, and I get this sense of like
Mm.
I'm lost in that.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the way that, like, is this a bad way to do?
Yeah, so the question was, you know, when I feel lost in a talk, it feels very frustrating that I'm not understanding, I'm perhaps wasting my time. There's a sense of urgency and I want to kind of move on. Yeah, you know, time is a very limited resource. And I think I'm going to get a little bit philosophical here because I've read a book recently about this. And, you know, we have this perception that, you know, we can get control over our time at one point. And then, you know, once we get control over our time, then everything will be fine. But this is a fallacy. You will never have control over your time. There will be other things influencing that. And also, like, you don't actually know what will be beneficial for you in the future, right? Like, you might be sitting there and feeling frustrated and not understanding. But then, you know, 5 years down the line, you'll be like, hey, I remember there was a talk about this. And then you go back, you find that paper, you read it, and you find, hey, I actually understand all of this, right? And so you never know what will be useful for you. It might feel like right now this isn't useful to me. I'm not understanding anything. But like even just knowing tangentially like this sort of web of knowledge is very useful. And it feels frustrating in the moment, but understanding that, you know, this eventually might be beneficial to me is a really helpful skill. What was the book I read? The book I read is Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. I really recommend that book. It's very good. Okay, I'll hand it off to Lucas.